Good Tuesday afternoon. Jerry Miller, welcome to the I Love CVille show. It's good to be with you on a gorgeous Tuesday. We are live in Charlottesville, Central Virginia, the Commonwealth, the country, and the world on the I Love CVille network. Phenomenal program lined up for you. We're going to analyze Jim Ryan on Face the Nation, CBS over the weekend. The president of the University of Virginia had some insight to offer on a globally televised program that we'll pick apart like Thanksgiving turkey, his interview on today's show. We'll also talk UVA taking bank from the federal government and the CARES Act. You heard correct. University of Virginia, this behemoth with billions, in fact, 9+ billion with a B, and its endowment takes $11.7 million from the CARES Act, 50% of that $11.7 million allocated to students at the University of Virginia. We will talk Governor Ralph Northam and his efforts to reopen the economy Friday. 50% capacity for our restaurants, our vineyards, our breweries, and many are opening. Three Notched Brewing Company has announced its opening Friday. Three Notch is going. We have businesses like Skipping Rock, who have announced in Stanton that they're going to open on Friday. We have businesses on the Charlottesville downtown mall that are opening on Friday, and we're going to talk about that today on the program. Businesses like Blue Ridge Country Store, kind of getting in that world where you're really getting into being an institution. And Blue Ridge Country Store on the downtown mall, if you watch this program, you know we're huge proponents of small business owners. Blue Ridge Country Store is a husband and wife business, and they grind. Okay? They grind. And it's Dan and Patty. They are always in there. If you know the business, they have a fabulous salad bar. They have a fabulous selection of, mixed nuts and snacks, and you can buy some Devil's Backbone. Hayes Humphreys is going to join us. They open Friday. And I'm curious to see how it goes. Monday the 18th, correction on that. They open Monday the 18th. I'm curious to see how that business model goes, because that's a very different one than sitting outside on the downtown mall or sitting outside at your favorite restaurant and having a beer with some social distancing on the patio. We'll cover all that. We're an advertising agency, I Love CVille and V&V Brands. 109 clients on the roster as of this morning. Satellite office in New Providence, New Jersey. Clients from New Providence to Asheville, North Carolina. Most of them in the Commonwealth and Charlottesville, and we're proud to be on the downtown mall. We're proud to work with interstate pest and service companies. 4-generation strong family business that's managing this COVID-19 situation extremely well. Servicing your house, servicing your business in a very safe manner. Interstate Pest and Service Companies, local and 4-generation family strong. Scott Wagner, Chiropractic and Sports Medicine, also a proud part in the show. Dr. Wagner and his team, sports medicine, physical therapy, chiropractic care, changing people's lives. Judah, let's run headlines. Headline number 1 is the University of Virginia and Jim Ryan. I'm going to play the interview. It's about 6 minutes long. I think it's important for you to hear it. I don't think many have heard Jim Ryan. I encourage anyone watching the program now to get your iPhone out and tag someone in the comment section right now that needs to hear Jim Ryan on Face the Nation. Share it to your Facebook page right now, because your followers need to hear how arguably the most influential man in Charlottesville and Central Virginia, I'd say the 2 most influential people in Charlottesville and Central Virginia, there's 2. There's one very much in front of the scenes, and that's Jim Ryan. The other one is Corin Capshaw, the music magnate, Dave Matthews Band manager, the Riverbend Development, the man behind Riverbend Development, and the guy who's got his hands in so many different businesses and industries and categories behind the scenes, Corin Capshaw. Those 2 have the most influence of anybody in Charlottesville and Central Virginia. So get your phone out, share this to your Facebook page, or tag someone in the comments section, because we're about to play Jim Ryan's interview. Judah Wickhauer is our director. Do we have the interview ready to go, Judah? Okay, I'm going to play it on 1 if you could, sir. Thank you. Jim Ryan, UVA president on Face the Nation, CBS. 3, 2, 1.
It's graduation season. As students finish high school and college in the next few weeks, The big question that students and parents have is, what will the fall and their future look like? Jim Ryan is the president of the University of Virginia, my alma mater, as well as the alma mater of our executive producer, Mary Hager, and former Face the Nation moderator, John Dickerson. Wahoo wah.
Wahoo wah, Margaret.
So you have not yet canceled all summer courses or the fall semester. How do you make this decision? What are you telling parents right now?
So we are in the midst of trying to figure out how we can have as many students back on grounds in the fall and in classrooms, and to do that safely. And we're working night and day to figure out exactly how to do that, and we'll make an announcement about the fall in mid-June. We're trying to push back as far as we can so we'll have the best information when we make the decision, but we also realize that people need to be able to make plans.
Certainly do. But what do you mean when you say, you're taking into consideration health standards? Do you expect to have to test every student before they come back to grounds?
So, I think in order for us to be able to have students back on grounds and in classrooms, there are a few basic things we're going to need. One is testing capacity. I think we would need to test students when they first arrive, and faculty and staff before the students arrive. We're going to need to have the ability to do contact tracing. We're going to need the ability to be able to isolate and quarantine students who have been exposed. And then we're also going to need to enact a bunch of social distancing protocols in terms of how far away students need to be from each other in the classroom or in dining halls. As you can imagine, it's a complicated task. College campuses are a difficult and challenging place for contagious viruses.
What you just described is what mayors and governors tell me they have to do. It sounds like you're planning for basically a city. What is the state telling you? Will all Virginia state schools make the same decision at the same time and do the same thing?
So we are in contact with the Department of Education, and I'm also in close contact with my colleagues at Virginia colleges and universities. And we are all trying to work against the same challenge. And my hope is that there will be a set of guidelines that we can all agree to and all follow. But not all of us are in the same situation as well. Some of us have smaller campuses than others, some are more local than others. So I think we're all following the same principles and all guided by concerns around public health. But because circumstances differ from campus to campus, some might be able to open sooner rather than others. Some may be able to have more students back than others.
UVA has a relatively high percentage of out-of-state and international students. As you look at applicants, how are you taking into consideration not just where people are coming from, but how many people to accept at the university?
Yeah, so international students are a particular challenge. A number of them are not likely to be able to be back in time. So one thing that we know for sure is that we will have courses that are online in order to provide an education to students who can't come back to campus. That may be true for students who are out of state or in state who are at high risk as well. But our admission season this year was remarkably strong. We had a higher yield than we did last year, and we fully expect to have a fully enrolled class when fall comes around.
Higher yield, do you mean more acceptances?
I mean, more people have accepted our offers of admission. A higher percentage accepted our offer of admission than last year, which is a little surprising given the uncertainty.
Right. UVA obviously has a strong athletic program on the basketball front, certainly on the football front as well. Those are also revenue streams. What do you know about the athletic season? What is the plan?
Yeah, it's a great question. We're taking it day by day. Obviously, we need to have students back on grounds before football can begin. But our athletic director, Carla Williams, and our head football coach, Bronco Mendenhall, are committed first and foremost to the safety and well-being of their players, our student athletes. And they'll begin practice when the medical experts tell them that it's safe to do so. Our hope, obviously, is that there's a football season this fall. I don't imagine it will look like normal football seasons, just like I don't imagine, even if we have all students back on grounds, it will look like a normal semester. It will not be a normal semester next fall, regardless of which path we follow.
So, you know, the federal government passed this massive package called the CARES Act, and private universities with very substantial endowments like Harvard and Princeton took a lot of public pressure for even applying for any kind of financial help. UVA has an endowment just short of about $10 billion and did take it. How do you explain that?
Well, we accepted the funding because it is helping our students. Half of the funding that we received goes directly to students in need. We created a student hardship fund that we've been using to provide grants for technology, for online learning, for transportation, for living expenses. And those needs are only going to continue throughout the summer and the fall. So half of the funding we received is directly related to providing assistance to our students. The other half reimburses us for costs that we incurred, including rebating housing and dining costs. So we're really passing on these savings to our students, and I think that's a good thing to do.
All right, President Ryan, good luck to you and to
Thank
all
you very
the
much.
upcoming graduates. We'll be right back
Thanks.
with a tribute to mothers.
Okay, so that's Jim Ryan on Face the Nation from CBS. I thought it was important to play the interview in totality. I'd like to take some opportunity to dissect the interview and get you, the viewers' take on what you watched. Put your comments in the comments section. We're live on 12 Facebook pages. What did you make of Jim Ryan's interview? What did you take of the Face the Nation interview on CBS? I thought it was a good one. I'm going to give you my takes. I'll read yours on air. I see some coming in already. I'm happy to relay your perspective on the I Love CVille show. A couple takes that I took from it. I think it's obvious they just don't know. Okay, it's obvious they just don't know what to do. So they're playing a wait-and-see approach with the hope that the data or parallel institutions, other universities and other presidents, or maybe it's the government, or maybe it's Dr. Fauci, where someone can help alleviate the exposure and the liability. Can you imagine the liability a university faces if it asks students to return to grounds from all over the world, and UVA is a global brand, students to come back to Charlottesville from all over the world and the risk of the spread of COVID-19? So that undoubtedly is on the mind of President Ryan, his C-suite team, the board of visitors. That undoubtedly is something that's being thought of. Another concern that UVA, President Ryan, and universities across the board have is the business model and the value proposition of an in-person tuition versus an online tuition. You can't charge as much online as you can in person. There are built-in profit centers for the UVA model for in-person education. And those profit centers could be dining. Those profit centers could be lodging, the room and board. Those profit centers could be the juice. Did you realize as part of your tuition, a percentage of what you are paying to the university, if you're an undergraduate student, is allocated, whether you want to it or not, to the university athletic department? Okay, so there's built-in profit centers with the tuition you pay every year. And if UVA has to revolutionize its business model and go from this in-person business with these in-person profit centers to a digital one, the price point's going to go down drastically. I mean, a drastic reduction in price point, and then UVA is going to have to do massive volume and digitally educating students. That eventually, without question, and this is Helen Dragas all over again, that undoubtedly is the future of the model. Do a hell of a lot of students in a digital setting from all over the world and just have a paywall or a tuition or a cost to take this class, and you do bulk, massive volume for your student body. That's the future. We're not there yet, and Virginia wants to preserve its in-person model and those in-person profit centers, which are without question, huge margins on them. Huge margins. So this is what I took of it. Other topic I took of it, how about this statistic that Jim Ryan said? That there are more students who accepted their invitation to come to UVA than before. I want to get the exact metric on there. And I want to listen to the playback if we can. But you heard Jim Ryan say we exceeded our acceptance rate for students coming to UVA. We were surprised that this many people said yes. What do you make of that? I'll give you my take in a second. What do you make of that? Okay, this is what I make of that. Okay, what I make of that is the August 12th, 2017 storyline. Terroristic attack. Judah Wickenauer and I disagree on that word. You say no on that word, right? Okay, we disagree on that word. August 12, 2017, UVA, surprise increase in people that said yes to acceptance to come to UVA. It shows you that slowly, either locally, regionally, East Coast-wise, national, it's slowly, Charlottesville and UVA is moving past 812. That's a benchmark. How many people say yes to come to the University of Virginia as a freshman, as an 18-year-old influenced, as a first year, as an 18-year-old influenced by your mom and dad? The acceptance rate is going up. That tells me, agree or disagree, that tells me we're moving past potentially A12. From a brand stigma standpoint, from Google Charlottesville and A12 shows up in images off the bat, from go to dinner for Christmas on Long Island with your in-laws and they ask about A12, not as strong, not resonating as much anymore. Another thing that I took from this, and this is headline 2, put on screen please, sir. Headline 2 from the Cavalier Daily. UVA takes $11.7 million from the CARES Act. The University of Virginia takes $11.7 million from the CARES Act. UVA has a $9+ billion with a B, $9+ billion with a B endowment that basically means money sitting in an account ready to play. I'm not saying the whole $9 billion. I understand a lot of $9 billion endowment plus. Yet they take $11.7 million from the federal government and how they manage the PR and how they manage the brand perception and how they manage you and whether you should be pissed off because there was a limited amount of money that the federal government has given to small business owners. And we have said on this program many times, for you who watch the show, we raise a stink when Shake Shack takes the money, publicly traded company. We raise a stink when Ruth Chris takes the money. We raise a stink when the Los Angeles Lakers of the National Basketball Association, did they get the money? I know they applied for it. Somebody help me there. Lakers either got the money or they applied for it. We raise a stink about that. Should we raise a stink about a brand or an institution that has an endowment of over $9 billion? $9 billion, getting $11.7 million from a federal relief bailout, federal relief fund that was specially created for small businesses and not publicly traded companies and not big brands that hoard billions of dollars on their balance sheet. University of Virginia. Am I wrong in reading that? Correct me, please. Of course, they managed the perception by saying 50% of the $11.7 million is going to go to students. You have to say that. The fact of the matter is you're in the business of managing and making money off students. For you to say 50% off, 50% of the $11.7 million goes to students, those are your customers. Good job. You might think I'm crazy. Barbara Lundgren doesn't. Barbara Lundgren says, small businesses lose again. Nina Knight on the feed, she says, there's billions in their endowment. They should be tapped into those billions of dollars in the endowment. Thank you, Nina Knight, for putting that in the feed. Give it a like, give it a share on any of the Facebook pages you're watching this show on. Hayes Humphreys is going to join us in about 4 minutes on the program. Governor Ralph Northam is delaying Northern Virginia's reopening until May 29th. Did you see that? And can you blame him? Have you been in traffic on the Beltway? Have you had a cold beer in anywhere in Northern Virginia? Have you walked anywhere in Northern Virginia? Okay, you talk about a cluster, and I'm going to leave it at that. Of course you have to delay it. The only reason I'm bringing this up to you is, do you as Charlottesvillians, as Central Virginians, and this goes for any country, state in the world that is watching this program, you have in your country, your state, your neighbor, you have areas that are much more impacted by this virus because of the dense population of that region. They are impacted at levels that are much greater than a lower densely populated community. A good example of this is where I live, Northern Virginia, which is at the northern part of the state. I see folks in Spain and Italy watching the show, that's why I'm explaining it. Northern Virginia, which is at the northern part of our state, and we live in Central Virginia. Northern Virginia is being hammered by COVID-19. Central Virginia is not. And the fear I have, boys and girls, the fear I have, friends, and follow this program is this. If you're in Northern Virginia and the governor of Virginia has said, you can't leave your house, you can't go to work, you can't get a haircut, you can't go to your gym, stay home for a couple of months. You probably have cabin fever. If you're in Northern Virginia and your economy's not opening, aren't you going to get in your car and drive the 90 minutes from Northern Virginia to Charlottesville and Central Virginia to patronize the breweries, the wineries, and restaurants that can open at 50% capacity on their outside patios? I would. Wouldn't you? If you were in Fairfax or Arlington and you were so sick and tired of being at home, you'd get in your vehicle and you'd come to Charlottesville. You'd do it anyway for wine country, for beer country. You're going to do it on Friday and moving forward. Watch it. Let's see what it does. And it kind of irritates me because there's going to be limited seating at these breweries and wineries and restaurants, and I want to go. And they have 50% capacity. And I know Charlottesvillians and Central Virginians, our friends and family in this community, are itching to get out to support the devil's backbones of the world. And they're going to do it soon, and they're going to do it this weekend. I would hate to see Northern Virginians cannibalize the open seats for Central Virginians. One more topic before we get to Hayes Humphreys. So I'm going to get to Hayes, I promise you. Judah, I'm going to take the rest of the headlines. I feel on fire right now. I'm going to take the rest of those headlines and put it at the bottom of the show following the Hayes Humphreys interview. One more headline, though, and this is from Friday. We're going to talk about this after Hayes Humphreys. Get the NBC 29 headline up, please, sir, about restaurants, wineries, and breweries opening on May 15th. Think about it. What are you going to do? Where are you going to go? Are you going to be out there? Are you going to judge the people that do? Will you judge if folks go to a restaurant in the downtown mall to support their neighbor, their family, their aunt or uncle, and do it in a safe and social distance manner, wearing a mask and staying away from people and supporting a small business at 50% outdoor capacity? Restaurant, brewery, winery. Will you judge? And if you do, is that the right emotion? That is an emotional dichotomy, an emotional crossroads, an emotional juxtaposition that every community is going to struggle with moving forward. What about the people that go and support the businesses right away with masks on in a social distancing safe way, and the people that say, hell no, we won't go, it's way too damn early? There's going to be a rift, and I hope there's not, but I'm seeing it already. I want to talk about that after Hayes Humphreys here on the I Love CVille show. Judah, I'm going to reach out to Hayes now, please. It's ringing. He is the Chief Operating Officer of Devil's Backbone Brewing Company. He is good people. He's on the line now, Judah Wickower. Hayes, so we can see you, sir, if you can activate that camera for us. And we will go live to you. Beautiful. Awesome. Judah, we have him on the line. We're good on your end. Awesome. Hayes, you are live for Charlottesville and Central Virginia. First, I want to thank you for joining us on the show. Second, I want to say your beer is freaking amazing. Third, I want to say going out to your headquarters, your stomping grounds, base camp, is one of our favorite things to do. I love every aspect about the DB brand. Before we get to that, about yourself, sir. Who is Hayes and what is he all about?
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Yeah, I'm Hayes. I'm the Chief Operating Officer over at Devil's Backbone Brewing Company. I've been there for about a decade now. I originally moved down here to Charlottesville to go to UVA, went to the Darden School of Business, and was one of the lucky few that got to stay afterwards. Really lucked my way into a job at Devil's Backbone back when we were just getting started, and they made the foolish decision to hire me, and I've been with them ever since. So been living here in Charlottesville since 2009, working at Devil's Backbone since 2011, and yeah, love it here. Love Devil's Backbone, and excited to be talking to you guys today.
His brand, a booming brand. We've tracked the progress to the acquisition from the start. I mean, just an absolutely impressive brand. So much I want to cover with you. First, let's talk Devil's Backbone. Friday, a big day.
Yeah.
How does your team manage Friday and the potential for a reopening?
Yeah, well, I think we are excited. We miss having people on site. Basecamp is a big space to not have guests, and I think we're managing it with an abundance of caution. We are planning to open up. We're lucky to have a big outdoor space to sit in, so we can essentially move our dining room outdoors, spread things out pretty significantly. The actual on-site operation is something that we're getting more comfortable with, and then as much as possible, we're just trying to control the flow of people. So we've never taken a reservation before at Devil's Backbone, but we're going to go 100% reservation starting on Friday to make sure that we can control the capacity. Obviously, it's frustrating if you're somebody that drives out from Charlottesville or Lynchburg to Devil's Backbone, drive 45 minutes or an hour and find out there's no space. So we're going to make sure that people can find out ahead of time whether there's space. We want to keep people from congregating outside the gates, waiting to get in. So essentially you'll be able to reserve a table and come hang out with us and stay socially distanced from everybody else. We've been running with curbside pickup and takeout, and so the sanitization and a lot of the sort of increased hygienic practices and health and safety practices that we put in place like 6 or 8 weeks ago are still in effect, and we'll hype up this weekend. So excited, cautious, and trying to the message to the team has been, let's be really strict this weekend because we need to set new behaviors, we need to set new habits, and we need to make sure that everybody stays safe.
Our team is messaging us. We see 11 different breweries around Virginia watching the interview as we speak. So your contemporaries and your peers watching you now. I'll throw.
Hey guys.
Is it safe to say that Devil's Backbone in particular and a lot of the breweries are in a unique position because of the massive amount of land they have to solving this issue?
I think if you have a lot of outdoor space, obviously right now you're in decent shape. But, there are a lot of both restaurants and smaller tap rooms that are, indoors. A lot of our more urban tap rooms, I think, are, facing the same challenges they've been facing for several weeks. So I'm sure that they're eager for us to get on to phase 2. And the best way to do that is to make sure that everybody who does have the privilege to open this weekend operates really responsibly and make sure that we, keep the case numbers on the decline and let us move through phase 1 and get to phase 2.
How do you look at a position like Basecamp? I mean, do you look at it like, all right, tap room, let's get beer to people? Or do you look at it like, we serve really good food? Do you prioritize?
We've always wanted the location. We've always wanted Basecamp to be known for more than just the beer, right? We want Basecamp to be about the food, about the barbecue, and also about the experience, right? I mean, it's one of a kind to go out there and sit with mountain views 360 degrees around you and relax and take a load off. It's really, it transports you when you sit out there.
It definitely does. That's why we love going out there. So how do you think it's going to look? I love the reservation idea. I think a lot of people are going to do that. How's this going to look? I do think few things well. One of the things I do well is supports local businesses like yours. One of the things I do well is I love to drink beer. I can't wait to go out. Okay. How is this going to look?
Yeah, I think it's going to look like a more organized weekend at Basecamp, right? Typically, if you come to Basecamp, the gates are open, everybody floods in, you wait at the bar, there's big crowds everywhere. kids running around the meadows. And it's really kind of a make your own experience, right? You can come out there and there's a lot of space and you can do whatever you want. Unfortunately, right now, as we kind of relaunch, we don't have the freedom to let everybody do exactly what they want all the time. And so it's going to be a much more controlled experience. You're still going to get great weather. You're still going to get great beer. You're still going to get great food. You're still going to be able to sit outside and enjoy the fresh air, enjoy the views. But we're going to be pretty strict about making sure that, people are kind of staying at their tables, since the tables are sort of the anchors that keep everybody distanced. We've implemented online ordering, online payment, so you won't have to actually hand your card over. We'll bring you the food. You won't have to go to the bar, as much as possible. We're just trying to get ahead of any opportunity for, even well-intentioned, the most well-intentioned people are still going to need to get up and go to the bathroom. So how do we deal with things like that to make sure that we don't have crowds waiting outside the bathrooms? You're still going to have kids running around. So how do we think through things like that? And some of it, a lot of it is controllable, and some of it is going to be on our shoulders to figure out as we go and just keep safety in mind all the time.
I love to talk innovation. What you think the innovative strategies or the pivots you'll see from your space going forward? I mean, I've enjoyed getting, I'll be straight up, I've enjoyed getting, the cases of beer that I pick up curbside. That's been enjoyable. What innovate? And I wouldn't. That's not necessarily innovation. I guess that's a means to an end. But what innovations do you see from this category?
No, it is innovation, and I think a lot of places are going to be keeping things in place that they've started. Right. We don't really know what the restaurant industry, what the service industry is going to look like once we get back to some level of normalcy. I think I'm on the end of the spectrum that thinks people will resume normalcy a little bit more than we've heard some folks talk about.
Oh, tell me about that. Yeah, tell me about that.
I think given time and given enough comfort, people want to get out, they want to congregate, and so I don't think it's going to happen tomorrow. I don't think it should happen tomorrow. I don't think people, it may not happen all summer, it may not happen all year, but I do think we'll get back to a fairly normal restaurant industry, but there's going to be a long transition period. And so in that interim, I've seen lots of comments, smart comments on your page talking about, the economics of a restaurant are really challenging at 25%, 50%, 75% capacity. And so everybody's going to need to keep doing all the things they're doing and add back the on-site service portion.
And that's one of the reasons we reached out to you, was because of your response. I thought your responses were so damn smart, dude. I mean, what do you do if you're a barkeep, right? And you can make X amount of dollars, and 75% of your loyals ain't gonna come, so you'll get 2.5 out of 10, and you can make more sitting on the couch from the man as opposed to grinding. I mean, I understand that plight.
Sure. I mean, I think from the labor perspective, that is temporary, right? It's not going to last forever. And so it's important. I don't think most people prefer to sit at home. I think most people would like to be out doing something they're passionate about. And so, that piece isn't going to last forever. But what is going to last for a while is reduced capacities, either through regulatory or through, just the consumer's comfort. And so I think one of the things that we're really thinking about is how do you maximize your check averages in those seats, right? If you're only going to have half your seats, then you need to make twice as much money out of those seats going forward. And so is it going to be more manicured upscale experiences? Is it going to be faster turns? So what you're seeing with takeout and delivery is you can do, more orders without having your tables taken up. And it's going to be both, I don't think it's going to be an either or. People are going to have to figure out how to make more money out of the seats that they do have available, and then turn people through the door more quickly. So, we are looking at, not necessarily from the base camp side, again, luckily we're lucky to have a lot of space, but from the brewery side, and how do we partner with our customers, the retailers out there, we're looking at what are the options to help those retailers create exclusive high-end experiences, which are things that, we've always done as a brewery with a lot of reps out there, from, beer dinners and elevated tastings and food and beer pairings. But, anything that is worth it for the customer and also lets the retailer charge a little bit more, I think is going to be super important.
Does and I'm just talking in general terms here, does the category's ideology about tap rooms and tap room expansion to build brand equity and brand awareness, does it change now with uncertainty of, in-person experiences? Is it now more about bringing the beer straight to the consumer?
Yes, I think there's a couple of things. One, obviously, we've all gotten the ability to do direct-to-consumer delivery and that sort of thing, and I think there'll be a big push to keep that around. I hope it stays around. I think it's going to be really hard to put back in the bottle. I think from the standpoint of a brewery like Devil's Backbone or Star Hill or a bigger brewery, from a brand development perspective, wanting to have locations around different geographies, I think that sticks around. I think one of the things that a lot of tap rooms are going to have to think through is like the really new model of the tap rooms is selling a lot of to-go product at high margins. There's the majority of tap rooms make their living by hosting people on site, selling draft beer at a nice margin, and you can make a really nice living that way. There's an echelon of tap rooms, like Treehouse in Massachusetts or the Vale in Richmond or Aslan up in Northern Virginia, who are selling 4-packs of 16-ounce cans for $20-24.
I buy them.
Yeah. And they're great.
Yeah.
And that you can do without having to have people on site. And that provides a really nice margin. And so I think breweries that have tap rooms currently are going to have to figure out, as a backup to make more revenue, are going to have to figure out how to sell more stuff out the door at a higher margin. And people have proven that they're willing to pay for it and the beer is worth it. So
great answer.
I think they can do it.
Great answer. How about festivals? So much of the beer component and the beer brand is that like experience of being at the venue and spending 4 hours in escape. And dude, I work 70 hours a week. We went out there, Tony Jorge, we moved recently. We were neighbors with Tony.
Nice.
You guys had like a seafood and brews festival.
Mm-hmm.
We brought our little boy, my wife and I, and we were just able to get out of the house, and it was so freaking awesome. How about the festival food experience, component here?
I mean, that's clearly on hold for a while. That seafood fest for us was scheduled for the first weekend in May, so we've already pushed that off to the fall. We have our big festival Hoopla at the end of September. It is still scheduled at this point, and we're kind of in a wait and see mode. That's the piece that has the fewest solutions right now. For me, I'm taking my cues from Major League Sports at this point. When we start to see some of the sports leagues try to figure out how to have crowds, then maybe we can take some cues from then. But so far, football opened up, and my understanding is ticket sales were not super strong. So that's an indicator that I think people are not comfortable with that yet, and so. Those are just going to be challenging, I think, for now. We saw everything from the early summer rescheduled to the fall, which is interesting because there's only so many weekends. And then, I think we're a few months away from knowing whether those can actually go through in the fall or not.
Interesting question coming in from one of your colleagues. Jerry, I love the show. You know which brewery I co-own. If you could, please don't use my name. Tell Hayes I appreciate his honesty in this interview. Does he think the entire category is going to shrink?
I think very clearly there's going to be a lot of challenged breweries out there.
What does that mean?
There was, it was commonly accepted there was already a bubble and that we were expecting some sort of correction. Openings have not slowed, but closings have accelerated. So there's more churn. We'd started to see some pretty big players in the industry publicly have some pretty big struggles. A lot of your, older, bigger, mid-sized breweries were struggling. And I think that there's a lot of, just like a lot of businesses, like a lot of households, there's a lot of breweries that are just a few pay periods away from, being really financially challenged and unable to stay in business. And so those timelines are accelerating right now for a lot of people, unfortunately. So if your entire business is based on hosting people on site, your options are very, very limited right now. So I think even if we open up, I think one, not to be super negative, one thing that I think people are not paying a lot of attention to yet is even as we open up, if the transition period back to full capacity is 4 or 5 months, like a lot of places can't go that long at that kind of capacity. So, Yeah, I expect that we'll see some definite corrections. I think we'll see a rash of closures. I think if you love your brewery
Support
out
'em.
there, order the beer direct from them as
Well
often
said.
as you can.
Thank you for that. You have 8 or 9 different people saying they're going to Devil's Backbone this weekend. So we're going to have to set some protocols here of how they can go to Devil's Backbone before they do. This question is a good one from Josh Elwood. What's the outdoor capacity restriction at your venue before we go there? That's a good question.
Yeah, so we have quite a bit of space and quite a few seats. We can expand over 100 people and keep people pretty distant.
So you can do 100 at one time.
In theory, yeah.
Good for you, dude.
Yeah, it's a lot of space. We're on, there's almost 100 acres out there, and there's 10 acres within the actual base camp property. So there's a lot of space. We are. So if you do want to come out to Devils this weekend, pay attention to our social channels. We'll be posting all the guidelines and the restrictions after the governor makes his final call tomorrow. So we're going to hold off and just make sure that he's a go on this. And if at 2:00 tomorrow he says, yep, we're going to stick with phase 1, then we will communicate how to do it, the website to make reservations, all that kind of stuff.
So are you a double who?
I'm not. I'm just a single who, unfortunately.
You got MBA from there, right?
I got my MBA from Durham,
Okay,
yeah.
so you got orange and blue in you here. I'm going to ask you a tough question here, and neither of us want to be in Jim Ryan's shoes right now. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, we are almost at and here's a good question for you, or a good example. We had a lot of folks that are kind of in your peripheral space in tourism, wedding, events, and they've said that so many of the rooms are currently still reserved from a hotel standpoint because the people who have these hotel blocks reserved are uncertain what UVA is going to do. Mm-hmm. And the wedding industry is hoping that we can get an announcement so we can have a pivot with those room blocks and potentially open them up for other people. Your thoughts on the UVA machine here and kind of just being like, we're just not sure what's happening.
Yeah, I'm super unqualified to answer. I can empathize with anyone who runs any kind of organization right now, trying to figure all this stuff out for the first time and just trying to do the best you can. It changes so much week to week, we're going to likely open up here on Friday, and then we're going to have a few weeks to figure out how that impacts, coronavirus and COVID-19. And, I think it's really hard. It's really hard to predict 6 months out. I know my emotional hope is that everybody's back in the fall, right? That's a big piece of Charlottesville. If it's not safe to be back, then everybody needs to make hard decisions right now.
How about Charlottesville? Your thoughts here. You're a proud Charlottesville guy. Me too. What are you seeing from Charlottesville? Where do you think we head? Anything positive that you've seen from this thing? Innovation. We got Wilson Ritchie, the owner of the Whiskey Jar, taking his dish pit and doing car washes behind his restaurant. We got Animal Connection, the owner of that business, delivering food on bikes to people the day of to beat Chewy, who's on a 3-day delay. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, times like these always bring out, I think, the best in a lot of people, right? So first of all, we've seen this huge community effort to make sure that, school kids get lunches and families in need are supported and meals are donated. At Devil's Backbone, obviously, we did a great meals program. You can order, we're doing like food boxes, and you can order a box for yourself and also pay one forward. And we give them out to first responders and families in need and people, who are embarrassed to go to the food bank or, no questions asked. And there's stuff like that all over town, right? I mean, you see what Hunter's done with Brasserie Saison and Jose Andres' organization. And, so just from a community support standpoint, that's always the silver lining in these moments where there's just so many good people out there who give everything they can to everybody else. So that's been incredible. And from a business perspective, we started 4 new businesses essentially within 2 weeks after this all started, right? And everyone all over town has started doing that, right? From people doing delivery to people doing online for the first time to restaurants doing takeout and carry out for the first time. I mean, look at Hop On, Hop Off doing their new food delivery service, right? I mean, there's everybody, and I have said this to a few people, and I certainly don't ever mean to make light of the situation that we're in, but it was kind of fun just that that all of a sudden, like, everything's turned upside down and you got to figure out how to get through it, right? And so figuring out how to start all these new lines of business for us felt like the early days.
Dude, I was just going to say that. I felt the same. I felt reinvigorated.
Yeah.
Because of the unknown. It reminded me of 12 years ago in startup mentality, where I was like, I got to pivot, throw stuff against the wall, see if it sticks. If it sticks, keep going after it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we were lucky. We have obviously a big partner in Anheuser-Busch. We got to keep everybody on board. We could, even when the hours weren't there, we were able to support people's wages, which actually, in the long run, worked out really well, because in the first couple of weeks there wasn't enough to do, but having the labor around and having, people that we needed to find work for, we got even more creative, and we were able to find more productive ways to put people to work. And, the regional delivery has been really fun. The fact that we can get, Devil's Backbone beer and food here in Charlottesville now for the first time ever. We're actually, we're running around on a food truck to some neighborhoods to serve food to people. That was something we'd always wanted to do anyway. And now, this was a great opportunity to jump into it. And actually, your buddy Tony Jorge was like the guy for that. I was like, Tony, can we get a food truck? He was like, yeah, I'll get a food truck. Found a food truck. And he's been out there slinging burgers and stuff off that food truck in neighborhoods that don't have a lot of restaurant access. And so, it's that piece is exciting. The cause is unfortunate, but, we are better, smarter, and everybody around the company too, because the missions are so clear right now, and it's like survival mode. Morale's good, people are happy, like they know why they're coming to work every day, right? And it's to keep the business going. Sometimes there's so many other things going on, you get distracted, you kind of forget what you're doing, and in moments like this, it's like super clear, like we're here for one thing, and it's to make sure we're slinging beer, slinging food, or whatever it is, getting it into people's hands.
Dude, you crushed this interview. Last question. Anywhere you want to go on this topic, a final word for Charlottesville, what you miss maybe being out there with the fam. Do you have a young son?
I have a 15-month-old. Yeah, actually, The timing, that part has been not terrible, because when we moved right before we started, and he wasn't walking, and now he's walking, so we got to do the whole, we got to see every step along the way, so that was really cool. Man, I will tell you, starting 2 weekends ago, I started really feeling like I would pay an absurd amount of money just to sit in a bar with a bunch of people.
Amen.
I was getting really, I used to live over in the 10th and Page neighborhood, and I was really hanging out at Rockfish Brewing quite a bit over there, and Random Row was a great spot.
Peter's great.
Yeah. So I can't wait to get back into the breweries and be able to make the tours. And, I'll be out there for sure. And I think just, Charlottesville, again, this has been a good moment of community solidarity. Keep it up. We're in this for a while longer. So keep rolling.
Thank you, man. You crushed it. I'm so grateful for your time.
Thanks. It was great talking to you guys.
Yeah, you have a good one. Hayes, guys. Hayes
Yeah,
Humphreys, a phenomenal interview. COO, Devil's Backbone Brewing Company. I'm the same, Hayes. Hayes, great interview. We'll archive the interview in totality on ilovecville.com. We'll turn it into a podcast on iTunes and Apple Podcasts. I miss it so much. So much. I mean, I thrive on human connection and energy and being around people and watching the game on, over a cold beer, over an 8-point. I miss it so much. A lot of comments I want to get to. We'll get to the comments. Give it a like, give it a share on any of the show, on any of the pages you're watching the show on. I'm going to run headlines again before I do some comments from the viewers. This is from Kate Elwood. We really should be upset with the government policy leaders for not putting better guidelines in place for the PPP program. The large publicly traded companies and big brands followed all guidelines to apply. I'm not saying it's right, but there were not strict guidelines put in place for the PPP program. Truth. Dropping knowledge dimes. Kate Elwood, and she's coming on the program later this week. That's true. That's true. And Ruth Chris and Shake Shack, they've said, look, we thought we could apply for this. So that's true. There certainly should be accountability and culpability and responsibility for our policymakers, and our policymakers should have had the foresight to say, University of Virginia and Shake Shack and Ruth Chris and the Los Angeles Lakers, you cannot apply for the PPP program. Agreed. Scott makes a good point. Is it Scott Clothier? I think it is. Scott Clothier leaves this comment, which is a good one. The endowment cannot just be used whenever and for whatever reason. Make sure you mention how the endowment works before involving it as a reason to be mad. Respect, Scott. He's basically saying, yes, UVA has $9 billion in an endowment, but the whole point of an endowment is the money's endowed or allocated for something or some project. It's a good point. Andre Xavier leaves this comment. First day of Charlottesville delivery felt like our first day at Hop-On Tours. We had 4 orders, but I'll know soon when we have dozens of orders what business we're running. I think Andre Xavier and John Craig and CVille Delivery have a phenomenal idea. And I respect his vulnerability of saying, in the first day we had 4 orders. I respect that honesty, Andre. And I do think that you and John and CVille Hop-On Tours and CVille Delivery have an idea worth pursuing. And I love how you're bringing food to neighborhoods. I love how you're bringing the food to the consumer and you're charging the consumer the delivery fee as opposed to taking it out of the margin of the restaurant. CVille Delivery is a good idea. Headlines that we didn't get to very quickly. I have a conference call at 1:45, Judah, so I want to watch tempo here. This headline, I think, is worth getting up there. Fridays after 5 headline, Judah. Fridays after 5, as we know, uncertain. That happens on Fridays in the Sprint Pavilion in the Charlottesville Downtown Mall, as we know. Uncertain about Fridays after 5. Obviously, the question I'm going to have with you is, how deep does it go? We know it's not going to happen anytime soon, but how deep does it run? Okay, is it all 2020? Will we have the fall portion? Is it going to go into 2021? So Fridays after 5, now uncertain and temporarily on hold. That's a headline you need to get to. Another one that I'm following closely, and share the show right now, like the show, and this is about the Charlottesville Area Transit, the CAT buses. Okay, public transportation. Listen to this. Charlottesville Area Transit received $5.3 million from the CARES Act. Jaunt received $5.5 million. As a result, Albemarle County as a municipality said, you guys are already getting bank from the federal government. We're going to cut some of our funding at the local level because we're hemorrhaging money over here, and these police officers and these teachers want to get paid, and these people that own this real estate in Albemarle County don't want their taxes going up. So we're going to chop some money out from CAT, and we're going to cut some money out from Jaunt, and we're going to keep it back into the budget because we're hemorrhaging and bleeding money. Basically what's happening right here. So CAT, the buses that go around the area, Charlottesville Area Transit, they get $5.3 million from the Fed through the CARES Act. Albemarle County takes their money from, $1.2 million down to $516,000, so cuts their money in half. I'm going to straight up say this on this program. And you can follow, you know what the largest metropolitan public transportation system is? I learned this yesterday. The largest one is in New York City. MTA, New York City. The MTA in New York City, ladies and gentlemen, Google it, do some research. In fact, I'll do it right now. Is hemorrhaging money to the point where they are asking and have received billions of dollars in relief from the federal government. And the federal government has to give the money to public transportation in New York City. Because can you imagine if New York City residents lose confidence in the in the subway? Imagine if the subway goes away in New York City. What happens to New York City? Imagine if people are afraid to get on the subway in New York City. So Congress and the federal government gives them $3.9 billion. Billion with a B. Billion with a B. Because ridership is down 90%. Ridership is down 90%. So that's the absolute macro storyline. New York City's subway system is about to fall apart. It's closing overnight to try to clean the cars. It's asked the Fed for billions with a B in relief to save alive. And New York City residents are uncertain whether they'll ride a crowded car again on a subway when they're uncertain about the cleanliness. Let's take it a step further and let's do it here in Charlottesville and Central Virginia. Similar circumstances. Charlottesville Area Transit is hemorrhaging. Charlottesville Area Transit and its business model was already in an unhealthy position before COVID-19. Now, in a COVID-19 standpoint, its business model is even more problematic. Let's say that. People ain't riding the bus. People are afraid of the cleanliness, and people want some 6 feet of space. Are you going to ride down West Main Street and around Charlottesville and the area with a bus that has 4 people because you have to have 6 feet in between the people? That business model is not going to work. I straight up going to say this. If it continues like this, Charlottesville Area Transit ain't going to be alive anymore. Can't run a bus system with 4 people in the bus and stay in the black from an operation standpoint. So I would scratch my head and say, if this continues, Charlottesville Area Transit's in a very slippery, precarious position. That is safe to say. Agree or disagree, put it in the stream. I'll get to these comments about that. One more headline that I want to get to, and I'll get to the comments, is from a wild man, like this eccentric genius, and Elon Musk. Elon Musk names his kid like TI-82 or something like that. Seriously, Elon Musk, the CEO of Tesla, just had a kid with his girlfriend, and he named his kid a very strange combination of letters and numbers. Like, very strange combination. Look it up. He is going toe-to-toe with California, and he's saying, I'm going to restart my factory now, and I don't care what you say. And he's doing it. So Elon Musk is restarting his Tesla factory despite his municipality in the state saying, not so fast, my friend. He's saying, I'm going to give you the bird, and I'm going to do it anyway. And we're going to follow how this is handled, because I think a lot of people are going to be like, we're going to open up, and we're going to do this, and we're not going to care what you say. How are you going to enforce it? So if Elon Musk, in every major publication that covers financial news in the world, on the front page of every major publication or in the lead story block of every news TV that covers finance, is saying Elon Musk is spitting at California and opening its factory and saying, I don't care what you say, I'm going to run my business. Let's watch how that's managed, and if it has a trickle-down effect to the local guy that says, I'm 3 months behind on my rent. UVA football's playing right now. I got a packed bar. I need to make up some of that red and help this business get back into the black. Hush, hush. Let's keep slinging beers, despite the elbow to elbow. That's going to happen. Man, good show today. NBC 29, Barbara Lundgren just said, NBC 29 announced today that Fridays After 5 is canceled for the unforeseeable future. Bummer. Love Fridays After 5 with a burning passion. Today was a good show. Hayes Humphreys was really, really good. Tomorrow's program, we're going to spotlight AHIP and the positive things that Jen Jacobs and AHIP are doing. We're going to welcome their partners from Beck Cohen and from Tiger Fuel. AHIP making the community better. Jen Jacobs, the executive director, on tomorrow's program. Kate Elwood's going to join us on Thursday. Kate Elwood making some big-time things happen. I'm a huge fan of you, Kate. Especially your entrepreneurial vision. Really, really like that, Kate. My name is Jerry Miller. This is the I Love CVille show. I hope you guys enjoyed the program. See you tomorrow. Good show, Gito. Well done.